Hello, this is Bill. Welcome back. In this video, you'll learn about adding filters such as drop shadow filters and bevel filters as you learn how to create rectangles, buttons, oval buttons, and rounded rectangle buttons. This video will focus only on the creation of the buttons. A subsequent video will walk you through creating rollovers and adding hid areas. But now that you know what we're trying to create, let me go ahead and close this file. And I'm going to come along and open up or create a new Flash file. When working with buttons, I typically want those in the library, so I can either create copies or instances of those buttons. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up and open up my library. To do that, I'm going to come here to Window and choose Library. Well, to start things off, I'm going to press on this little icon down here at the bottom, this little plus. That's going to create a new symbol, and I'll call my first button, give it the name Blue Rectangle 1. You can see the various type of movie clip, a button, or a graphic, and I want this one to be a button, and I'll go ahead and press OK. Okay, so I wanted the first one to be blue. I'll go ahead and press on my rectangle tool, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stroke color, and I'll go ahead and make my fill color blue. So now I'll be creating a rectangle that's blue that does not have any border around the outside. And I'm just going to come right over here by my reference point and drag out a little blue rectangle. Well, the next step I want to do is add my drop shadow filter to this one. In order to add a drop shadow filter, I've got to be dealing with either a button symbol, a movie clip symbol, or a text. So I next need to convert this. I'm going to come up here to Modify, Convert to Symbol. And I'll use the default values here, just not even going to bother to change the name or anything, and I'll go ahead and press OK. Now I can go ahead and open up my Filters window. To do that, I come here to Window, Properties, Filters. Drag this a little bit over here to the right. I'm going to press on this little plus sign, and I'm going to choose Drop Shadow. Right now, my strength is at 100%, and it looks pretty dark down there on the bottom. If you want, you may want to possibly decrease that strength there a little bit. And at this point, I'll go ahead and close my Filters window, and I've added my drop shadow. Okay, I'm now going to double click on layer 1, and let me go ahead and call this my background. And I'm going to come along, and underneath this lock, I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer so I can't accidentally change that. I'm now going to press on the Insert Layer button, and this is where I'm going to add my text, and therefore I'm going to go ahead and call that my text. Well, I want to get some white text. I'll go ahead and press on my Type tool, and I'll press on this. I just really want to make sure I get my fill color set to white. I'm going to go ahead and press on this little icon called the black and white, and that's going to change my fill color to white. At this point, I can come over here, and I'm going to type in button 1. And if I want, I can use my selection tool to help me reposition that. I'm just using the up and down arrow on my keyboards there to move that text around. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a copy of this or duplicate it. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and right-click on Blue Rectangle 1, and I'm going to choose Duplicate. It's going to open up a little dialog box here, and I'm going to simply give this one the name Blue Rectangle 2, and it is a button. Go ahead and make sure that is my active one, Blue Rectangle 2. I'll go ahead and use my Type tool, and I'll simply change that from a 1 to a 2. So I've got Blue Rectangle 1 and Blue Rectangle 2. Okay, at this point, let's go ahead and put these on the stage or on my scene here before creating any more rectangles or any more navigation buttons. So I'll go ahead and drag out Blue Rectangle 1 and Blue Rectangle 2 there. Okay, next, if you recall, there were some oval buttons. Well, to begin creating those, I'm going to kind of repeat some of these processes. Press on this little plus sign that's going to insert a new symbol. I'll call this one Blue Oval 3. Again, a button type, and I'll press OK. Okay, if I want to create an oval, I'm going to simply press on the rectangle, press and hold, and choose the Oval tool. And again, I'm going to go ahead and change my fill color to that same blue. And I don't want a black border around the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stroke. Okay, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a little oval, a blue oval. I'm now going to add my bevel. But before I can add that bevel, I first need to convert this to a symbol. To do that, I'll come up here to Modify, Convert to Symbol. Again, I'll just leave the name alone. I'll just press OK. Now I can go ahead and add my bevel filter. To do that, I'll come here to Window, Properties, Filters. And I'll come along, press this little plus sign, and I'll choose Bevel. There's some options here you can change. Maybe this time I'll leave everything alone, and I'll go ahead and close this window out. Okay, like I did earlier, I'm now going to go ahead and double click on layer 1. I'm going to call this my background, and I'll go ahead and I'll lock that layer. I'll press on my Insert Layers button, double click, and I'll call this one Text. Okay, again, I want to create some white text. I'll press on my Type tool. I'll make sure I've got my fill color set to white by pressing on the black and white icon. I'll come over here and I'll go ahead and type in button 3. Use my selection tool, possibly the arrow keys on my keyboard there, to help me reposition that text. Okay, that one is finished. So let's go ahead and create a copy of that or duplicate it. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and simply right-click on blue oval 3. I'm going to come down to Duplicate, and I'm going to go ahead and give this one the name blue oval 4, and I'll go ahead and press OK. And I'll go ahead and use my selection tool. I'm going to double-click here, make sure I'm on the right one, and I'll go ahead and use my Type tool, and I'll change that 3 to a 4. And at that point, I'm now finished. Let's go ahead and drag these onto the stage. I'll press Scene 1, and I'll drag blue oval 3 and blue oval 4 onto my stage there. Okay, the last buttons were some red rounded rectangles, and let's go ahead and get started with those. Well, to do that, I'll press on this little plus sign again, and I'll go ahead and give this a name. I'll call these red rectangle 5. Again, type is button. I'll go ahead and press OK. These I want it to be rounded rectangles. I'm going to go ahead and press on this rectangle tool, which currently is on the oval tool, and I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. And let's go ahead and change the properties on that before I forget. I'm going to come up here to Window, and I'm going to go to Properties, and Properties there. Right now my radius is set at 0. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 15 so I get some rounded corners. Close my Properties window. I wanted to get these were supposed to be red buttons, so I'll go ahead and change my fill color to red. And again, I don't want you may want one. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my stroke so I don't have a black border around my buttons there. Okay, so I've got my rectangle tool set at rounded 15 pixels, and the color is fill. So I'm going to go ahead and create a rounded rectangle, and there we go. Okay, this one I believe had a drop shadow on it, so like we did earlier, I first need to convert this to a symbol before I can add my drop shadow, and I'll just press OK here. I can now come up to Window, go to Properties and Filters, and I'm going to come along and add a drop shadow. This one I'll go ahead and just change the strength here to 75%, and I'll go ahead and close out my filters window. Again, I'm going to double click up here where it says layer 1. I'm going to give this the name background. Hit the enter key under lock. Go ahead and press on that so that layer is locked. I'll press on my insert layers button, double click on it, and I'll type in text and hit enter. Okay, I want to create some white text on top of this. I'll go ahead and press on my type tool. I'll press on my black and white buttons, so my fill color set to white, and I'll come along and I'll type in button 5, use my selection tool, and reposition that. Okay, I've now created red rectangle 5. I want to create a copy of that. I'm going to simply right click on it, press on duplicate, and I'll call my new button red rectangle 6, and I'll press enter. Okay, and make sure I've got red rectangle 6 selected. I'll use my type tool, and I'll simply change that 5 to a 6. Okay, at this point I'm going to come back to my stage, press on Scene 1, and I'm going to go ahead and drag over copies of red rectangle 5 and red rectangle 6. At this point, if you wanted to, you could possibly, I would never create a website that had square or rectangle buttons, oval buttons, and round rectangle. I'd make sure they all had the same color and the same shape. But let me go ahead and show you how to align these. I'm going to go ahead and close my library, and I'm going to come up here to Window, and I'm going to open up the Align window. And I can see I've got my selection tool active. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all these buttons, and I'm going to simply press on this little icon, which is called Align Left Edges, and that's going to go ahead and align all those buttons there on the left. Well, this kind of concludes this video. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about adding drop shadow filters and bevel filters, and you now know how to create rectangle buttons, oval buttons, and rounded rectangle buttons. And I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.